Before we get Warhammer 3, we still have one Warhammer 2 Lord Pack due for release later this year. I think it's fair to say that the most likely matchup anticipated by the community was Beastmen vs Dark Elves. But with the recent addition of Rakarth for the Dark Elves as an independent FLC, this matchup no longer seems as certain. So who might be the race that goes head to head with the Beastmen now? Will it be one of the core races from Game 2, such as the Lizardmen or High Elves? Might we get some DLC for DLC, with the Tomb Kings receiving a 5th legendary lord? Or will we see what many believe is highly improbable, and have a Game 1 versus Game 1 matchup, with the Dwarves, Vampire Counts or the Empire facing off against the Beastmen hordes? In today's video, we consider the case for the Lizardmen being the second race in the upcoming Lord Pack. We will take a quick look at some of their available lords, some units that could make up interesting roster additions, and some potential mechanics that could be added to make their campaigns more enjoyable. So let's start with the obvious question: which characters are left from the lore that could lead a Lizardmen Lord Pack? We have Chakax, the Eternal Warden, who is the greatest of the Saurus Temple Guards of the city of Zlan-Hupek. He stands watch over the Slan Mage Priests as they meditate in the Eternity Chamber, protecting them when they are at the most vulnerable. In battle, he wields the Starstone Mace, a massive double-handed mace crafted from a stone from another world. It has the rare ability of rendering magical energies around it inert. He also wears the massive skull helm of the Prime Guardian that belonged to the very first Temple Guard. That warrior spirit heightens the wearer's senses, so they become aware of any and all threats around them. Chakax is a formidable warrior and would undoubtedly be implemented as a melee specialist, and can have a mechanic based around Temple Guards and the protection of Star Chambers. Another option is Tetto'Eko, the astronomer of the constellations, and one of the most celebrated skink priests of the Lizardmen. Lizardmen society is very regimented, with the Slan at the top, but Tetto'Eko's abilities afford him the same reverence as a Slan among the Saurus and Temple Guard elite. If implemented, he would be the first skink magic legendary lord, as neither Tic-Tac-Toe nor Tehenuin are magic users, and his ability to predict events and shift fate to his favour could make for an interesting mechanic. He would also be the ideal lord to introduce the Skink Oracle and Troglodon alongside, as the Oracles do not use magic themselves, but are merely conduits for it. Tetto'Eko was a level 2 wizard on the tabletop, limited to the Law of Heavens, and would use that law in-game, and could start his campaign with a Skink Oracle in his army to give the player access to the conduit mechanic. A character that would bring us a unique legendary lord is Oxyotl, who is a much feared chameleon skink who is known as He Who Hunts Unseen. He is ancient, even for a Lizardman, as he was alive during the original Chaos incursion into the world. He is most well known for his war of revenge against the Servants of Chaos, able to detect the presence of the minions of the Dark Gods and thwart their plans time and time again. His weapon of choice is the Golden Blowpipe of Ptui, which is able to dispense hails of poisonous darts with great accuracy and ease. While we already have chameleon skinks in the game, we don't have a hero version, and there are not many ways to improve them in combat. Oxyotl could change that, and provide the Lizardmen with an alternative playstyle based more on stealth than brute strength. Perhaps a more obscure option is Inxi Huinzi, no relation to the spider, who is a cunning skink leader who has battled the Norskins for centuries. He rides into battle on his deadly horned one, let's call him Fido, which he personally captured and tamed, a feat very rare for a skink. He carries dozens of poisoned darts in his quiver and just behind his shield, which he hurls at the enemy as he charges, Yet as he throws these darts, he wields his spear and shield, ready and able to fight in melee. Adding Inxi Huinzi would be the perfect time to expand the Lizardmen's cavalry options by introducing Skink Cold One riders and Skink Kulchan riders to the game. His unique mechanic could also be cavalry focused, providing bonuses to mounts. That covers the possible lords, so let's take a look at some of the units which we might see added alongside them. There are the Skink Cold One riders, which could come in a few varieties. There would be the missile variant that throws spears, much like the infantry version we already have in the game. There would also be the melee version that would be more heavily armoured and would fight with a longer spear and shield. They would be faster than the Saurus Cold One riders we currently have, as the Skinks are lighter and don't encumber their mounts as much, but they would be less effective when caught in battle. They would be an excellent light cavalry option for the Lizardmen. Another beast which can act as a mount for Skinks is the Kulchan, a giant and ferocious bird that can move with incredible speed on the battlefield. They stand about 9 feet tall, with long powerful legs and a long neck that allows them to use their massive beaks to snap at the enemy in all directions around them. If Creative Assembly wanted to keep Cold Ones for Saurus, then Kulchan would be the perfect mount for Skinks. I would love to see these beasts added in an anti-infantry role, along with a missile variant. Alongside these cavalry options, there will be a few larger beasts, such as the Oxyotl. They have a long snake-like body with a pair of massive feathered wings and a large dragon-like head. It's a terrifying, yet oddly mesmerizing sight with its colourful plumage. They are able to manipulate the winds of magic and are seen as messengers of the gods in the eyes of the Skinks. The Lizardmen are lacking powerful units in the air, and the Oxyotl would provide a ferocious beast that could rectify this weakness. Another beast which is missing from the Lizardmen roster is the Troglodon. They are known to be among Lustria's most deadly hunters. They live in caves and only emerge when they need to feed. They have very poor eyesight, but their other senses are so heightened that they more than make up for the handicap. The Troglodon has a toxic bile which it is able to spit over short distances. It is highly corrosive, searing through flesh with a sizzling sound that draws the Troglodon in for the kill. Troglodons are favoured by Skink Oracles as mounts, as they provide a great defensive position from which to channel the spells of any Skink priests or Slan mages. Adding this beast as both a feral option and as a mount for Skink Oracles would be a fantastic addition to the Lizardmen roster. I can easily imagine a lineup focused on Skinks, where we get the Kulchan cavalry, the Oxyotl, and the Troglodon, along with crested Skink warriors, which would be the higher tier of Skink infantry. So, how about the mechanics? What could we see implemented for each of these legendary lords? Chakax is all about protecting the vulnerable Slan mages as they slumber in their star chambers. A mechanic that revolves around the star chambers and the temple guard units that defend them could be interesting. I would imagine a battle mechanic that has several stages, but is only available in provinces where a star chamber has been built. A new UI element would be visible on the battle map, similar to that of the Dark Elves or the Tomb Kings. It would have multiple tiers and would fill as your soldiers fall in battle in defense of the Great Plan. As each tier is triggered, Chakax and your temple guard would gain buffs to their prowess in battle, as they become more determined to defeat their enemies. The final buff could possibly see your temple guard become unbreakable and fight to the death. Alongside this, the Star Chamber could be changed from a single building to a chain, with the higher tiers increasing the buffs received by your temple guard in that province. Tetto'Eko is a bit more difficult to find a mechanic for. His claim to fame is his ability to predict the future, but how can you implement that in a campaign mechanic? Well, it might be possible to have a mechanic that is based around reading the signs in the constellations and predicting the course of events. A new user interface would allow the player to view the constellations that are in ascendance, and select from a list of predictions based on the meaning of those constellations to the Lizardmen. Every X number of turns, a new event would trigger that would be based on one of the available options the player was given. If the player read the constellation clues correctly and chose the matching event, then they would be provided with bonuses to units for a number of turns. The bonuses provided would be based on the event that occurred. What sort of mechanic might Oxyotl have? His favoured weapon is his blowpipe, which fires poison darts at his enemies. So how about a mechanic that allows the player to create different poisons for Oxyotl and his armies? All skinks that use poisoned weapons could be assigned different concoctions which have different effects on the battlefield. The poisons could be created in a screen similar to Grom's Cauldron, where the player can use different ingredients found in the jungles of Lustria to create unique combinations of effects that are then assigned to their troops. Much like Grom's recipes, the player would start with simple combinations, but more options would open up as the player progressed through the campaign. We could see poisons that slow enemies, drain their health over time, confuse them or turn them against their own troops, or even freeze them in place. Combining skinks in your armies armed with these different poisons could make for a very interesting battle. As Inxi Huinzi rides a horned one into battle and leads armies of Cold One riders in the lore, I think a mechanic based around improving cavalry would be a good fit. I find that Cold One riders can be a bit underwhelming, and having a lord with a mechanic to improve them would be most welcome. I would envision a system much like Claw's workshop, where buffs could be applied to Cold One riders, Horned One riders, Pterodons, and the new Kulchan cavalry. These buffs could be purchased as the player gains enough resource, possibly some form of feed created from your defeated enemies. With that, we come to the end of the video, and have some possible additions for the Lizardmen, should one of their remaining lords be selected for a spot in the upcoming Warhammer 2 Lord Pack. If the Lizardmen were to be in the DLC, who do you think we will see as the Lord? And what units would you like to see added to their roster? If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like or comment, as will help this video get more exposure from the almighty YouTube algorithm. As always, I'd like to thank my patrons. Your continued support is very humbling. A special thanks goes out to Hot Apple Pie and to Cody Bonds. I'm Grey Tiger. I'd like to thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.